Hello there, and welcome to Real Talk with Patrick. How are you folks doing today? I hope you're having a lovely day today. I want to introduce our lovely guest that we have on today. It is Deanna. Welcome, Deanna.
Thanks, Patrick.
So, I thought we'd start off the podcast with you just introducing yourself, maybe let the people know how long we've known each other, just so that way they can warm up to you a little bit, even though I'm sure if they've watched my YouTube channel, they've seen you in videos before.
My name's Deanna, like Patrick said. I work with Patrick. I think we've known each other longer than I have been back to where we both work now, but I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years at this point.
hmm
Um, and yeah, that's about it.
Great. So, Deanna, we sometimes on the podcast have a specific conversation or topic that we talk about, and sometimes we don't, and we just pull from the teacup. But in talking to you before the podcast, I kind of said, hey, you're the one person that I usually talk about the most about drag queens and TV and like reality TV shows and like game shows and stuff. So I thought, why not start with that and see where that takes us? What do you think?
Perfect. As
Perfect.
except as I've told you, I have a really bad memory for specifics about TV. So I've watched not quite all of like RuPaul's Drag Race, for example, but um, yeah. So I'm gonna probably have a lot of questions about what season things happened on. But I once you jog my memory, I'm usually pretty good.
Perfect. So why don't we, since you brought it up, why don't we start with RuPaul's Drag Race?
Perfect.
So some of our viewers might not know what the show's about, so I'll just give a brief description real quick. So RuPaul Charles is a drag queen, and she has started her own show. It started, I think, in 2009 was the first season, and it's a while ago now. And basically, it's a bunch of drag queens in the United States. Sometimes they've originated from other countries like Puerto Rico or Canada, but they're living in the States usually. They go and they compete on this reality TV show where they have to do different things like costume design or acting challenges, singing challenges, things like that to become America's next drag superstar. And RuPaul's the one that makes the final decision. And at the end of every episode, there's usually two queens that land in the bottom, and they have to do a lip sync for their life to a very popular song. And then usually stays, and one sadly has to, as RuPaul says, sashay away. So that's the preface of the show a bit. Now, Deanna, because we just happened to randomly talk about it one day at work and all of a sudden just it went from there. So when did you first start watching RuPaul, and like what season, what kind of got you into it?
So I think the first episode of RuPaul I ever watched was actually at one of my girlfriend's houses because she was really into it. Um, and I honestly don't know what season it was. It was I want to say four. It was whatever one Alaska was on.
Season
Four,
5.
five. Okay, that's actually pretty good. I was close.
hmm
So it was that season that I watched there. Not that season. It was literally like I think it was one episode. I don't even think we watched two, and I was like, this is pretty sweet. So I can get into this. And I love RuPaul. I've known of RuPaul prior to that, not obviously as much as through this show, but pretty iconic in terms of the drag community and stuff. So yeah, that was the first season episode I watched, and it wasn't even the first episode of the season. It was whatever one she was on. I have no idea why we would have just been randomly watching TV, but anyway. So yeah, that was the first, my first introduction. So I can thank my friend Kathleen for getting me into Drag Race. And then I went back and I watched the first few seasons of it up to that point because they often refer back to previous seasons in subsequent seasons. So I didn't want all the spoilers of who had won previously. So I wanted to kind of watch all of those retroactively. So I'm pretty sure now I've watched seasons 1 through probably 9, but I'm not completely caught up, and I haven't watched all of the All Stars, which I'm sure we'll get into too.
Yeah. So kind of similar to you, except for me, it was actually an ex of mine was over at my place, and it was actually season 9 was live on TV, and he wanted to watch, I think it was like the final episode before the grand finale of season 9. So I watched that with him. Actually, I think it was Valentina's lip sync.
Oh,
Yes. And
the
I think
infamous lip
the
sync. Spoiler
infamous
alert.
lip sync, spoiler alert. And
Mhm.
when I watched it, and this was the only episode I ever watched, I was angry watching it. And I'm like, really? Really? So,
Because of the, were you angry because of the lip sync?
yes.
Oh yeah, it was
I was like,
bad.
does she not know? Does she not know what she's doing?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So, and then I got into it just from that. So then it just so happened season 8 was on Netflix. So we watched like a few episodes of that. And that's actually kind of what started it for me. And then I thought, I like this. This is entertaining. So then, yeah, kind of like you, I went back to the beginning. Unfortunately for me, though, because season 8, like I think it's the first episode, spoils all the
Yes,
winners.
right?
I
Yeah,
knew who all the winners
I
were,
know.
but then you kind of forget because some of them have iconic names, you're like, "Oh, I heard that name. I think they win this season." But I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't ruin the show entirely because it's still entertaining to watch. You just might know who wins in the end.
I did the same thing, and then the whole like Alaska Sharon thing. So then you really know. And anyway, that's
Yeah,
fine. It's
exactly.
fine. It's still fun to watch them all.
Oh, it's still fun to watch. Now, like I mentioned before, there are different tasks or challenges that the queens have to do. So some of like the staple challenges are we've got the reading challenge because reading is fundamental. We've got it's not it hasn't been on all the seasons. I think it was introduced in season 4, but we have the puppet challenge where
Oh
they
yeah.
do the puppets, yeah. And then we have the snatch game.
You know what's really funny is I think the Puppet Challenge season 5 was the one that I saw first. I'm pretty sure because that's the one where they had, and I cannot remember her name, but they made that like really janky puppet.
Yeah,
Do you remember what
I'm
was her
trying
name?
trying to
Oh my
remember. No.
goodness. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, but it was hilarious. And that became like a meme that my friends and I just sent to each other because she had like this huge curly blonde hair, which kind of has like, anyway, one of my friends had this like beautiful curly blonde hair. So I was like, ah, it looks like you. And we would just send it to each other.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, yes. So that episode's really funny. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, the
That's
puppet
okay.
challenge.
Yes, and I think they also do. It's usually near the end. They do a sewing challenge where they have to do 3 different looks. It's usually like an executive realness one. They have some other themed one, and then usually it's like the eleganza, extravaganza, which has to be all custom made there that day or episode or whatever you want to say. So those are kind of like the staple challenges in usually all the seasons. Out of those,
And what other one?
what am I missing? I
You're
said
missing
this.
Snatch
I
Game.
said the snatch game.
Oh, I wasn't
I
listening.
buried the lead. I buried the lead.
You buried the lead because the answer to that question is Snatch Game.
Yes. Okay. So it's snatch game. So from the seasons you've seen, who did the best snatch game for you?
Far and away, Jinx Monsoon. Far and away was the best Snatch Game, and this is all because I love comedy queens. And actually, it's kind of funny. I can't remember Bob, the drag queen's Snatch Game, but Jinx's I remember like far and away as the best one. And she did Little Edie, which nobody even knew who she was before this whole thing. And now, yeah, she's just so funny. And for me, Snatch Game is where the queens really just sort of differentiate themselves, and they all know it's coming. So I just find it kind of strange when they really, really flop. Like I understand how it's hard, but anyway. probably buried the lead with explaining what Snatch Game is if people don't know what it is.
Oh, yes. So, Snatch Game is like a parody of the game show Match Game. So, basically, the queens have to do a celebrity impersonation. It has to be a real person, not a fictional character. And they have to kind of personify that person and answer questions like in the game show Match Game. But the goal of the show is to be funny and make Rue laugh. That's the point of the challenge. So, yeah, Little Edie was really good. Personally, for me, I really enjoyed Ben de la Creme's Maggie Smith.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And I think I also really liked yeah, Ben de la Creme's Maggie Smith. Bianca did a really good Judge Judy.
Yes, actually hers was up there too. And again, when I kind of go through all the queens that I love, it's all those funny ones.
Yeah.
Like, and I've been to a couple of drag shows. Actually one twice from like as a result of this show. I've seen a couple of from RuPaul, and it's always the funny ones that are just enjoyable, right? Like as a show to watch. So
Yeah, no, I agree. So for you, who would you say are your favorite queens? Obviously Jinx, you've mentioned Jinx.
I do. I really like Jinx. I like Bob a lot. I liked her from the beginning actually. Because I just thought it was kind of a fresh take on sort of just being like kind of I guess I don't know how to describe it, but how did she always describe herself? Like the ghetto drag queen or something to that effect?
Yeah, like the
And
ratchet drag.
Ratchet, yeah, she always would call herself the Ratchet drag queen because it was kind of like she did most of her stuff from like just made her own clothes and like didn't have a lot of money and kind of came from that. And I always really like, and I'm so bad with names. This is so Alexis. I really liked Alexis a lot. Um, Bianca, obviously. I liked Sasha a lot, a lot. I
Yeah.
thought she was just so cool and like just so different from everybody else. Jinx, Bob. There's so many.
There's so many.
So many.
There's so
Yes.
many. For me, I'd say like my top five are probably I really like Alaska.
I'm indifferent to Alaska in a
Some
lot of
people are, some people are.
she's a lot.
She is a lot. I think personality wise, not my cup of tea because the whiny voice and the this and that,
Hmm.
it can get great on you. But
Yeah, and that's
performance wise,
fair.
fantastic. She's a fantastic performer. She's funny. She's
Mhm.
quick-witted. Things like that. I think I really enjoyed her Snatch Game on All Stars. She did Mae West.
I don't know if I've seen that season.
Well, you should watch it because she does Mae West and it's fantastic.
What season is that?
Season 2 of All Stars.
Oh, weird. Maybe I haven't seen that one.
So I would say Alaska's up there, Bianca, obviously. I also enjoy Jinx.
Mhm.
I'd also say, oh my gosh, Sasha's a good one. See, I like using Sasha because Sasha is comedic, but not in an overtly fun. Like she's not a funny queen.
She's not an in-your-face personality either, and I always tend to kind of go toward those people because in real life I don't like really brash people. I find it's too much for me, so I was drawn to Sasha. Jinx though I didn't like originally actually, but then as the season went on, I was like, yeah, she's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think I obviously yeah, like I like Alexis Mateo,
Mhm.
and yeah, there's so many. Like you said, there's just so many you can't really, and you can't compare them to each other because they have something different.
They
Like
do.
sure, some are a lot of them might be comedic, but they're different forms of comedy.
Yeah, and some of them are like just stunning, right? When you see them, like I personally, I always loved watching Kim Chi because you kind of wanted her to do well, right? But um, she's just not naturally like a funny person in front of the camera or comfortable necessarily in front of the camera, right? And that's okay. But when you watch sort of the outfits and the personality on stage, like the persona she puts on, it's like it's stunning to watch and to see too, right? So
Yeah. Now, trivia time before we move away from Drag Race. So, this was part of like the costume finale type for Canada's Drag Race. They had to do, obviously, like the original show, they had to do an executive realness look. Then they had to do an après ski look.
okay.
And then I think it was like a frosty snow queen look or
Oh,
something
okay,
like that.
okay.
So, apparently, especially on the show, everyone knew what an après ski look would be like. Do you know what après ski means? Because apparently it's supposed to be a Canadian thing that we should all know.
Well, is it not what you wear in the chalet after you come in from skiing?
You're
So they're all what's that?
You're correct.
I know I'm correct. It's usually like those like knit sweaters and stuff.
I did not know what après ski like, and I'm French, and I know what après ski means, but I'm like, what's an après ski look? Like, what are you talking about? Is it like?
I mean, for me, après ski is just your snow pants in the chalet afterwards, but it's always like what you sit by the fire in the chalet wearing. It's like, yeah, like kind of those bulky hand knit sweaters with a pattern on it, and like it's pretty basic. So actually, I'd be interested to see what they pulled off for the Drag Race.
It was very good. You'll have to watch the season. But speaking of Drag Race, reality shows, and our favorite, the Snatch Game, which is a parody of the Match Game, what are your thoughts on regular game shows like Match Game, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Card Shark, things like that? I heard from our previous conversations, there's a hot button topic for you about it. So why don't you share with the audience what that is?
Oh, Patrick, you want me to recreate a rant, do you?
I do, because it was a great rant.
Oh, so I actually love game shows. And when the Game Show Network first, I grew up watching like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune with my parents all the time, like as a kid. Still love those shows, although I don't have cable. So now I'm resigned to watching Jeopardy once they put them on Netflix. So that's a thing. And just sort of watching those seasons. So yes, I grew up watching most of those shows, and then Game Show Network came into existence. At least in Canada, maybe it was a thing forever, but in the 90s, I want to say, ish. Like I remember being a teenager, so it's got to be like the late-ish 90s. And that's when we got Game Show Network anyway. So watching all of the old shows, like oh my goodness, press, what is it? Oh my God. All I can think is
Press
No
Your
Way.
Luck.
Press Your Luck, yeah. Forgot that's what it was actually called. And like $100,000 Pyramid and all kinds of shows. Oh, and Wheel of Fortune. Sorry, not Wheel of Fortune. Oh my God. My memory this morning is not great.
Describe.
I can't believe I can't remember the name of this show. It was always on in the morning, and you only ever watched it when you were sick as a kid.
Price is Right.
Price is Right, yeah. So Price is Right, which you only ever watched when you were sick as a kid, but you could sometimes catch those on Game Show Network and stuff too. So like all of those shows, loved them growing up so much. However, the one thing I hate, and it's the worst for some reason on Jeopardy, is when they do the introduce yourself to the audience bit, which with Netflix now I can skip it, which is brilliant, and I always do because I can't. It's like a combination of who cares to some degree on some of those things that they bring up, but also it's so awkward sometimes. I get really bad secondhand embarrassment for some of the stories they tell, which, by the way, they have obviously told Alex Trebek about before he asks the questions, because you don't just randomly come out and be like, oh, I hear you really love playing blackjack. Like, it's always just the most random things that these people come up with and tell awkward stories. I swear to you, one time, I swear there was one about jam making. Like, she went on about making jam. I'm like, this is not a thing anybody. It's so awkward, and I don't enjoy it. And I hate that section of it.
Dee doesn't like that section where, yeah, it's super cringy, but I enjoy the section, especially on like Jeopardy, because and on Jeopardy, you have to be somewhat pretty smart to get on Jeopardy because when I watch Jeopardy, I don't know half the answers that these people know. And I'm like, how do you know that? But, anyways, so they're no judgment, but they're kind of like nerdy contestants. And usually common with the stereotype of being a nerd is you don't have the greatest social skills. So it's funny when you watch people that have awkward social skills have to talk about themselves. I think it's hilarious. So I love watching the rant about the jam or whatever because I'm like, who would think of talking about this? No one.
I've always wondered what question they ask the contestants before they give those answers. Like again, obviously they're prepared to give these answers. They're not just random sort of. It's not an off the cuff conversation they're having with Alex Trebek, obviously, but they have to be asking a specific question to the contestants to get an answer. So is it just like, oh, hey, what's one interesting thing about you? And they come up, they're like, I make jam. That's what I don't get. So what are you asking?
It's true because I've been watching recently the new version of Match Game. So there's the original Match Game, which we know, but there's a new Match Game, which like new and revamped with Alec Baldwin as the host. And they have what I call the C/B list celebrities. No offense to these celebrities, but I mean, maybe some offense. I don't know. But
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that's offensive.
But like, I mean, original Match Game didn't have like usually A-list celebrities either.
No.
So like they have like, and again, I'm not trying to be offensive to these poor celebrities, but they have like Joel McHale on there, or like they'll have, oh my gosh, what's her name? I literally told you when I went on my little rant too. What was her name? The one from Sabrina. The aunt from Sabrina. I forget her name. Caroline Rhea.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll have like Caroline Rhea, Joel McHale. They'll have Mario Cantone, who's some Broadway guy. They'll have like, what was it? Jason Biggs. Like from like American Pie.
Oh, I know who he is.
Yeah. So they'll have
and
people.
Orange is the New Black, I believe. He was the husband, wasn't he?
Right. So like they'll have people like that. And again, they're not, and I believe they must know that they're not A-list celebrities.
Well, and they're not on TV anymore either.
And they're not really on TV anymore. Apparently Joel McHale's back on TV because he's hosting Card Shark because they redid Card Shark again.
Never really liked that show.
I didn't mind that show. But
I mean, it never really, it's meh, it's okay.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like Let's Make a Deal. No. Or like Family Feud, which Feud, they've had how many hosts?
What? I feel like the hosts on that show are kind of cursed to some degree. Like some of the older ones, anyway, I'm not going to go there. But yeah, they've had probably 5 or 6 at least.
I think they've had like so many. And the only ones I remember personally are Richard Dawson. And I only know that because I remember him from the original Match Game. They have, I forget his name, but they have, I call him Tim Allen's, Tim the Tool Man's friend.
Oh, yeah, Al.
Yeah. And
they had a guy like named Ray Combs, I think, hosted.
Okay.
Around like after Richard Dawson, I think.
I remember, I forget his name, but the guy that played on like Seinfeld as like Elaine Bennis's boss with the white hair. The guy's name, John O'Hurley.
I don't know who that is.
Well, that's awkward. And yeah, that's the white-haired guy. And you were right, Ray Combs. So it actually went Richard Dawson, Ray Combs, Louis Anderson, Richard Karn is the Tim Allen guy, John O'Hurley, and Steve Harvey.
So 6.
So out of those ones, who is your favorite host from what you've seen?
Not Richard Dawson, because he's creepy.
Yeah.
I don't mind Steve Harvey, actually. He'd be up there. And I think Richard, not Richard Dawson, the other Richard. He was
Richard
good.
Karn, yeah.
Yeah, those two are good. I think Steve Harvey's probably my favorite, actually. And
I
Ray Combs was fine, but I don't think he was on very long.
No, I like Steve Harvey as well. I also didn't mind, yeah, Richard Karn, and I didn't mind John O'Hurley. I thought John O'Hurley was fine. He was the one just before Steve Harvey.
I will give the caveat that I have never seen him host, so he could be better than all of them. I don't know.
True, but speaking of, because game shows and TV is all a wonderful thing. Steve Harvey hosts Celebrity Family Feud, and
Oh,
you'll have to watch because one of the families is RuPaul with
amazing.
Michelle Visage, Carson Kressley, and then Raven and Latrice Royale.
Oh my goodness.
You'll have to watch it. It's
That
pretty
is
fantastic.
just chaos, is what happens there.
Oh, it's so chaotic.
Family Feud is chaotic at the best of times, I have to say, and I cannot picture those five people. Just I'm not. Who are they playing against? Do you remember?
They're playing against this other TV show, which I'm like, I can't even remember. The only person I remember from that, like the other family, quote unquote, is the one that played Jan from The Office. Speaking of Family Feud, have you ever seen, because Canada loves to have their own versions of everything American, have you seen Canada's Family Feud?
No, who hosts it?
Oh my gosh, what's his name? It's like he played on the show Mr. D.
Oh, and yeah, I actually have Jerry D.
Jerry D, that's it.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, he's
yeah,
the host.
yeah,
So you've seen it?
yeah, and he's good. I like him. I think he's hilarious. So
He's good, except the one thing that killed me was every opening he always says the same thing and it drives me nuts. I know
oh,
they all say it, but for him it's like, really, dude, do you have to say it every time? He's like, it's always been my dream to say this, so let's play the feud.
oh, okay, that's awkward.
And I'm like, you say that every episode. You've said it the first time. You can just
That's
say, let's play the feud.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I'm
With
like, you should always kind of say that, but you know what I always wonder too is like Bob Barker hosted keep wanting to
Price,
Wheel of Fortune.
Price is Right.
I did remember Price is Right for so long. And then who replaced him?
Drew Carey.
Oh yeah, that's right, Drew Carey. And like and I don't want to put this out in the universe, but like a lot of the hosts are getting older now, right? For different shows. And I just wonder who's gonna replace some of these older game show hosts because those people become so iconic with those shows that I
Well,
don't know.
it's like Alex Trebek. You
Mhm.
think of Alex Trebek for Jeopardy and you think of Pat Sajak and Vanna White for Wheel of Fortune because they were always the host. No one ever took over like a Family Feud
Nope.
or like Price is Right. It was Bob Barker, but now it's Drew Carey, or even Let's Make a Deal. It was always Monty Hall, and then it became Wayne Brady.
Yeah, and it's so like you don't think about the host being kind of because if they're doing their job properly, they kind of I don't want to say fall into the background, but they don't become the focus, right? The contestants should be the focus.
It's very seamless.
Yeah, and so you don't realize how much of an impact they have until it changes, I find. And it's like, whoa, I remember when Bob Barker left Price is Right, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like it's such a different and not to say Drew Carey doesn't do a good job because he does, he absolutely does. But it's just that I guess what I'm saying is it's a hard job to fill if you were going to accept that position to take a job over from somebody who's been doing it for literally decades.
Now, speaking of game shows, there are new game shows that obviously always come and go. But one that I felt was newer that held an impact was Deal or No Deal.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because they've had, like, I think, like Moment of Truth or things like that, which is another game show. They have so many, but like Deal or No Deal and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Those two, I consider them more of like the newer, they're not new, but like the newer ones than like the match games, the Family Feuds, the things like that. So I find it interesting how some game shows tend to just stick around because of the premise of them. Deal or No Deal is so different than the others. but it has like Howie Mandel. And could you see anyone else but Howie do it?
Oh, at this point, I don't think so. It's one of the, but I say that probably of all of the hosts, except for the ones like on Family Feud, where it's switched so often that you're kind of used to it to some degree. But I think it's because I think it's more about when the original host is there for so long, and then you switch it. But that happened with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I think because Regis did it for however long he did
Oh,
it, which
yeah.
was years. And it used to be an hour-long show, and then it went to terrible with names, but what's her name hosted it, and it was like a half-hour syndication. Like it wasn't a full-hour show, but I don't remember if it came off the air and then went back on.
Yeah,
And
I don't
she's
remember.
good too.
She's good too. Another one, another show you just reminded me for some reason, and this is still super. I think it's still on in the UK. It came to America and then went away. Was and I loved it. The Weakest Link.
Yeah, I knew. Yeah, I mean, there's no way anybody else can do it.
It's her. It can only be her because of her sassy attitude.
Yeah, that's one that it's like I can't picture anybody else being able to host.
like,
and that's not just because you're used to somebody doing it versus wanting them to continue whatever, but in her case, the host is the kind of the centerpiece of that show, which is different from most other game shows in some ways, right?
So Deanna, sadly, our show and podcast has to come to an end. I know I wish I could just talk with you about game shows and drag queen and drag race like forever, but sadly we have to bring it down. But anyways, what I like to do is ask my guest a random question on the spot to get their answer, and then I'll answer it too. So, since we're talking about TVs and game shows and stuff like that, Deanna, I would like you to answer which game show would you like to be a host of, and which game show would you like to be on as a contestant, and why?
Okay, that is a good question. I would like to be a contestant on Wheel of Fortune. Because I'm good at it, actually, mostly because I'm good at it, and because I watched it so much as a kid, and I think spinning that wheel would be so much fun. And hosting, ooh, that's a good one too. I think I would like to host Jeopardy, actually. I like trivia. I'm not great at answering trivia, but I can certainly ask questions. And I'm literate, so I could read questions. And the biggest thing about that particular show is you don't need to be like an over-the-top personality to host it. You just need to be kind of like that steady, competent, I guess, to some degree person. And I think I could handle that. I can't handle like just craziness, I guess would be the best way to put it. So yeah, I think I would host Jeopardy and be on Wheel of Fortune, and I could do them back to back since they play back to back on TV. My hour-long dream.
Yes. I'm trying to think for me. I think, see, I like your logic behind it. For me, I think it's more something I could win and something I get enough airtime on. So it can't be something quick. Like Price is Right, I can't go on that because I'm not good with prices, and if I don't even make it past the panel at the front, like that's it. My 5 seconds of fame, it's over.
Your career is done.
I'm done. So I need a show, and like Match Game, they do two contestants twice. So like I only get half the airtime. I need something where I'm there for the 30 minutes.
Part of the reason why I wouldn't want to do Price is Right, honestly, is because when they call your name, you have to like run down to the front. I'd probably fall on my face, which would be like
nice
worse. I'd be like casually trying to walk down the stairs in a very quiet and calm manner, which would be the opposite of what they want.
Yeah.
Also, apparently with Price is Right, they see the people in line and they pre-choose you, right? So there's no way they'd choose me. I wouldn't even get down to the front.
Yeah, right. So for me, probably contestant Family Feud, because I am actually good at Family Feud. I'm good at guessing the answers. But so that would be the game I'd go on. Now for hosting, Hmm.
Wheel of Fortune.
I was thinking of Wheel of Fortune. I think I'd be good at Wheel of Fortune, or maybe like something where you're quick witted and quick on the spot, which is like all of them usually. But like, I don't think I could host Family Feud. I could, but because the attention is more on the families, and I'm like, hello, attention over here, because I'm clearly the one running this. So Pat Sajak and Wheel of Fortune, or maybe Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, because half the camera's on their face, half the camera's on my face. Or, you know what? The Weakest Link. Because I think I could make sassy remarks.
I think you could do the weakest link.
I think I could do the Weakest Link. I will not compare probably to the host. I forget her name. I think her name is Anne. But I think I could make sassy remarks. And
But
then
you would make, my goodness, you would make it your own. You'd be able to make it your own.
yes, and then I could be like, so Jamie, you think Shaka Khan is astrology? What kind of idiot do you think you are? Or something like that. Because that's how quick-witted she is sometimes. And you're like, damn.
She's salty.
She's salty. Or, Richard, you voted to eliminate Anna. Is it because you're jealous of Anna and all her correct answers, unlike you, Richard?
I also like that you would put on a very terrible fake British accent.
Yeah, that's how you make the show. Obviously, you have to have the fake British accent.
I don't think hers is fake.
Hers is not fake, but I would have to have a fake British accent.
Perfect.
So there we go. Contestant, Family Feud, Weakest Link, host.
So you would host the Weakest Link with sass and a fake British accent. Understood.
Perfect. Yes, done. So, like I said, we've come to the end. Thank you so much for being a guest.
For having me.
Did you have fun? Good. I'm glad.
A lot of fun.
So, again, this is a bi-weekly podcast. Don't forget to check me out on my YouTube channel. Deanna is a lovely patron of that. And you can check out the podcast wherever podcasts are, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else. Also, if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to discuss with a guest, or you have a guest request or anything like that, you can always send me an email at realtalkwithpatrick@gmail.com. I'll put a link in the description. That way it's easy for you. Link down below. And thank you again for tuning in. And that will be it. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.